All right, guys, continuing to go over this amazing classic book from the '80s, Manga, the world of Japanese comics. And now I start getting into the shoujo, like the female comics, right? Flowers and Dreams. They mentioned, of course, the romance comics that were very popular in America. Okay, they were all created by men. They were all short-lived. Right? But in Japan, right, you actually had, like I said, you have segregation in the comics, adjusted for gender, or you did. Remember, this is the '80s. I have no idea what the trends are now. Okay? They're overwhelmingly women. They stress a more passive inner world of dreams and endless musings about humans' relationships. Right? Interesting. It's the more feminine, right? And they employ an appropriately different visual style. Now they bring up, right. You have a lot of blonde uh, haired Japanese characters. Okay, you also have probably the most non-Japanese characters you ever see. The West is was, I would say, was very exotic to the Japanese. Like, and I would argue to the Chinese as well. They get so disappointed when they go to Paris, apparently thinking it's the city of love. But going through here, they mentioned the different visual style. One of the things about the shoujo comics, and there's a few I've liked actually, they do the panels. Obviously, you don't have tons of action, right? So you have lots of the stuff kind of blurs into each other more. You could argue, right? It's a different style. Okay, you have lots of this. I don't have to even tell you. You can see the difference. Right? And of course, and the large eyes, the huge, expressive eyes. I told you when I was, obviously when I was younger, in Robotech, Minmay, I didn't realize she was Chinese. I should have, but I kept looking at her large blue eyes. So my racist ass did not realize that she was Chinese for that reason. Okay, of course, this is part of the thing, the style here. Of course, also you see lots of flowers, right? Unfolding roses, petals, fallen leaves symbolize femininity and the transits of life. Right, the large eyes, liquid pools of rapture. uh, and of course, the beauty standard, right? It's interesting, right? Round eyes, as opposed to the graceful, simple, curved Asian eyes, right? The epicanthic fold, which I think is beautiful, actually, have become a sought-after commodity because they are regarded as more expressive. Okay, popular plastic surgery operations in Japan today to make a larger upper eyelid. Chinese did that. Jackie Chan did that. Why would you do that? I don't understand. As a person with large round eyes, fish eyes and a big nose, Roman nose. Why would Why would you want? If you have these curved eyes, you should be proud of them. Call me nuts. Right? Obviously, I think this has changed. I mean, Jackie Chan's like 60, right? And also the idea of fashion and all this. Right? Blonde hair holds a tremendous fascination for young girls and middle-aged men for different reasons. But I think this is probably changing now. You see all the even the Koreans, the K-pop. You see them all with brown hair and blonde hair. So the culture they appropriate our people's hair. It's like I could care less. Now, and like I said, many of these series and these shoujo ones, especially in the '70s, and the '80s, they take place in exotic countries. A lot of them take place in Europe. Okay, some in America, as an example. And I had a couple of copies of this. Orpheus's Window, which is about the Russian Revolution, early in the revolution, the Kerensky regime. So obviously, this ends in October. Ryoko, what's her name? Ryoko Ikeda, right? The Rose of Versailles woman. So But the idea that the West is a world of romance, hence the disappointed Japanese and Chinese tourists that go to Paris. Now, funny, going here, of course, the author is a liberal, right? Compared to Europe and the United States, women in Japan have had their sex roles rigidly defined, and the socialization with the opposite sex restricted. This was actually the way of most of the world, including Europe. Okay, and I guess I don't know the United States as much, but in feudal times, women were often treated like chattel. Well, that's to be debated. They had a place. Okay, duty, submission to parents, husband, mother-in-law. Like the man could do whatever he wanted, right? A web of obligation, right? With this is what most of us had, our ancestors had. Okay, up to a century ago or more. Okay, especially for Southern Europeans, right? Right. In spite of this handicap, because of Japanese handicap tradition is handicap, women have developed a culture separate from that of men. Well, that is very true. Men and women were more segregated in traditional societies, in ancient European societies in general. It's actually healthier. Okay, it's counterintuitive. Okay, compared to the sterilization of today, where nobody in the developed world is having children for many reasons. But I'm not here to talk about all this stuff. Obviously, this is from the 80s. Nobody foresaw this, although they should have. Yeah. It's healthier to have the sexes segregated. I'm sure. So anyway, so I like this one here. They have, what is this? They have a Japanese princess and her American tutor, Miss Sponge Cake, with the you big nose. And she's not too impressed with the American sites here. What is this? The Statue of Liberty, New York, Lincoln's cabin. Well, I can actually see where the Japanese princess is coming from. So, and it's like too, one of the early boyish women heroes was from Osamu Tezuka. Okay, except she wanted to be a girl, but she had to act like a boy for her duty to her kingdom. Right? So going here, the entry of women to the field of comics paralleled their improved status in society. I guess that could be debatable now, since Japan's population is nosediving. The proletariat, of course. The proletariat, always bougies, saying and look at this, and in the heydays of freedom, immediately after the war, when women were given equal rights in the new constitution, the right to vote. Wow, that's the end of. Well, for the Japan, it wasn't the end, was it? It was more the end for us, but yeah. And of course, there are more women artists. I thought I could do a better job. Women were more capable of understanding what girls want than men. Freedom and independence. Okay. So you had, like I said, the 70s artists, like especially Ryoko Ikeda, right? Rose of Versailles, Orpheus's Window, Moto Hagio, right? The Po Clan, and various other ones. But despite this, right, girls' comics do not reflect a higher feminist consciousness. Once again, I bring up something from before. There's an element, even with all this leftism, right? Whatever that means anymore in Japan. There's an element that is missing in Japan. What is that element? I don't have to say what it is, and I won't say what it is because I'm not sure. There's something missing in Japan that you don't have here. Anyway, men's centuries-long suppression of women. Women were a lot more happier back then to have a place. Right? I like this here, but the same woman who's saying this, right? Today the prison door is open, but the legacy lives on, right? Invariably, what women demand in comics is tales of love. So the women's instincts and their intuition, as usual, is correct. It takes a lot of work to divert it. The so-called prison door is open. Is it open? The women instinctively know what they really want. But anyway, So just going through here, it's interesting too. Like this is cool. A comic about American characters, very to the American women, to the Japanese women, very exotic. The rock and roll thing. This is interesting. So 69. So this is a Japanese woman's view of what the rock situation in America was. That's interesting. And of course, the famous Rose of Versailles. I keep bringing this comic up. This is a very influential comic. Very interesting comic. The French Revolution. And of course, that is a woman. Okay. Oh, but she is not a lesbian, nor is she a trans. She's a daughter of the French bodyguard leader for the royal family in France in Versailles. He has a daughter, and his wife dies giving birth, and he raises the daughter to be as like a son. So very interesting ambiguity, travesty, all these things that you see later in Anne Rice's work. The Japanese women were doing this before her, though. It's very interesting how some of these parallel strains go. Whereas I argue that her stuff was undermining things, whereas I don't think I see that in the Japanese. Like I keep saying, like when I went over the Robotech videos, when everyone's trying to retroactively talk about how progressive Robotech was, how diverse it was. It was, yes, it was diverse. It was progressive. It was coming from a totally different mindset, and it took a homogeneous people outside of the West, okay, the occupied West, both physically and mentally, in order to actually have these things where you had this and it didn't undermine your society. Once again, the biggest issue is it's lacking something, okay, that the West has, unfortunately. So. And going here too, of course, you have the biggest famous thing with women too is the European, the beautiful boy, okay, and you have stuff like this. Oh, you have a little these homosexuality, the yaoi comics, and all that. Of course, just like the Anne Rice stuff again. What is it? It's really, they're really supposed to be women living vicariously through male characters. They're really supposed to be women. Okay, it's exotic, and the woman vicariously enjoys this experience through the surrogate, which is this beautiful boy, which is really supposed to be a woman. You get all these things here. So, also, like I said, bringing up Moto Hagyo, right? One of the biggest influences too. Like, okay, she made a vampire story, which was very much like Interview with the Vampire, except like about 4 years earlier. I'm not saying Anne Rice. There's no way she could have seen this comic. Okay, it was just what you would say is parallel evolution. It was always interesting how they always bring up the beautiful boy character. They base it off that what was that stupid that author Thomas Mann, that Death in Venice, that movie, which I've never seen. I have no desire to see that stuff. I mean, I like my decadence, but not like that, right? And that character in it, these I don't know what he is, the androgynous youth, was hugely influential on the Japanese women. They drew this guy as an archetype, whatever. So it's very interesting. Once again, it's the exotic. It's like you don't really want to know the actual reality of it, because the reality of it is pretty ugly, to be frank. So and now I spent a lot of time on that, but I will say though that my style of drawing has some. It's trying to be an animated style, but there still is an influence from some of the comics on there as well. So. Then you look at something like Saint Seiya, which is a boys' comic, but you had a lot of androgyny. It's an interesting thing about the Japanese. Okay? Obviously, one of the big things, too, is that none of these characters, even they look Japanese in the slightest. So now we go to the different comics, all the different comics here, where they have comics about, like, sushi makers, right? Photographers, all kinds of, things here. Work comics, right? And of course the working class has more comics like these. The salary man, the corporation comics have stuff like this. And like here, American and European executives, this is the 80s, right? Infatuated with Japanese management techniques. They wish they could change their ornery union-dominated workforce more obedient, right? Like the salaryman. But the salaryman comics show how the Japanese workers really view themselves. Yeah, you really saw how they really felt. They were very subversive, but weren't trying to change anything. They were just trying to get how they really felt about the ridiculousness of the Japanese salary system, where these guys would work like 90 hours a week, sleep 3 hours, spend 5 hours after work drinking with the boss to impress him and dying of heart attacks. But anyway, Mahjong. Can you imagine comics with Mahjong? So anyway, I gotta do another video.